Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's February 1st, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented today for the first time by our new presenting sponsor, LifeWallet, where the time is now to take control of your personal health. So Matt, big day before signing day, the fog of war has begun to set in, and just an enormous volume of stuff to cover in relation to recruiting, which is kind of unusual the last few years with this early signing period that came into effect, where almost all the recruiting took place in the early period. We're seeing a huge shift in the other direction this year with an enormous amount of recruiting activity for the Miami Hurricanes. You have to believe some of it was due to the coaching change with Mario Cristobal coming in, but I'm starting to wonder as I'm watching all of this activity, I'm watching players now even putting their decisions off until March, of all things, that maybe this is a trend in the making that might get some legs in the years to come. Your thoughts on that?
There's really, for a top recruit, there's not a lot of upside to signing early. But signing now doesn't mean as much anyway, because you sign, you can transfer no problem whenever you want. If it doesn't work out, there's not as much pressure on a kid anymore. It used to be, oh, I need to hold my spot. But now schools take way over the number they need at a certain position if they can get enough kids that want to come at that position, just figuring, hey, we'll figure it out later. We'll drop whatever kids we don't need. They can go find a new home. They can transfer without penalty. It's not that big a deal. So, we did a story on the numbers last week. And it shows they're going to be probably needing to have maybe 17, 18 kids leave due to desire to leave or otherwise. And I don't think that's out of the norm anymore. It's the way things are. You can call it free agency in college football if you want. It's not really free agency because you're not going to get a contract somewhere else, maybe an NIL deal, I guess. But it's a little sad to me. I'm glad players are getting paid through NIL deals and things like that. But it used to be people would take signing day off and it would be a celebration of a program for a fan base, whether you get the kids or not. Every year, every fan is taking that day off if you're a big fan, and you're waiting for those letters of intent to roll through, and you're following CaneSport's Twitter to see who signed, who we didn't get, who we got, the reaction from the fans. And yeah, it's a little different this year. And you say, oh, it's so different than the past. But in reality, there's going to be 8 kids on signing day that are announcing. And it used to be you weren't sure of any of the 25 necessarily, because kids can say, oh, yeah, I'm committed and I'm going to sign. But you just don't know till they actually sign. So there's really only 8 kids. And the nice thing is it used to be out of the 25, you were pretty sure that 17 or 18 of them were coming. And then the other 7 or 8, you weren't quite so sure. So maybe in that sense, it's the same thing. But when you wind up with maybe 4 or 5 kids in the class on one day, is that worth taking off from work? And if you don't have a sick day left or a vacation day left, is it worth taking the pay cut to see if 4 or 5 kids wind up coming to the program? And then if they don't come, you're like, man, and you're all upset.
It's different. It is different, and it's ever changing. It's like I said, this is the first year we're seeing so much activity in February since they put in the early signing day.
Right, but it's like going to Starbucks and finding out they're out of matcha. It's just, it's not the end of the world or the greatest thing in the world. It used to be the greatest thing in the world or the end of the world. Now it's just like, all right, well, we got some guys in December. We'll get some transfers in. It doesn't matter so much. The guys we missed, they'll be back in 2 years. If Shamar doesn't come, he'll be back in 2 years. It doesn't matter. So it's not like it used to be, which is too bad because there used to be such passion around signing day and the one day of the year. And now it's just lost a little of its luster. It's still exciting for me, but I can see why fans maybe aren't taking their day off from work and ignoring their children for the full day. You got to pay attention to the kids now, go to work, come home, cook your dinner, have a family dinner. Don't talk about football, college football with the wife and the kids so much anymore because it's not as exciting. It's not 25 kids, it's 4 or 5 kids. It is what it is.
All right, you've been fixated on numbers for so long.
Good reason.
All right, well, but let's just talk about that for a second. I'm going to take it off the banned subject list for a few moments here because it's looking like. So I guess they had nine kids coming out of December, right? It was 9, and then they picked up the transfers. So now they're sitting there at like 15 kids, correct?
You're looking at the wrong number. I don't know where you're going with this, but okay.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm talking about overall numbers. They're sitting there at, I believe it's 15, and now it looks like they're going to add maybe another 6 or 7. So this is going to end up being a year with 21, 22. It looks like. Would you agree with that?
I don't really know what does that matter?
Well, total, because you have a max of 25.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
You're right, because you could have gone additional because you can count back. But the point I'm making is
you're missing the whole point also.
Let's not get off on a tangent. I want to stick.
You're not understanding of basic.
No, I understand, but it doesn't matter because they're not going over the number. So it's looking like they're going to have about 21, 22 new players coming into the roster. Okay, combined. Early signees, transfers, late signees. Ballpark 21, 22 kids. You have been very fixated on how this is going to impact the big picture moving forward. And I know I'm putting you on the spot here and you haven't had time to really think this through, but, in a capsule look at it, if the number ends up being 21, 22 new players coming into the roster, into the team in this cycle, how do you think that impacts the overall picture of the roster?
Well, you're not presenting the question correctly, but I'll answer it anyway. The piece you're forgetting is there's a new rule where you get another 7 free.
But that doesn't matter because they're not going over. It doesn't matter.
Correct, but you're saying 21 or 22. It's not 21 or 22. I just want to make sure you understand. It's really 15 because those 5 or 6 transfers don't even count against the initials anymore. They're free.
Okay, but it doesn't matter because they're not going. What you're saying is they could have gone to 32, but they're not.
That's why I'm correcting your question. That's why I'm correcting your question. The 25 doesn't matter. I don't even mention it. 15 or 16 doesn't matter.
All right, we agree.
All that matters at the end of the day is the 85. And I have another reporter who actually was reaching out to me yesterday because he's working on a story in the numbers. And he had his roster at 85. I think our scholarship tracker is at 86. So we're both in a similar ballpark. And that's before signing day, obviously. So if they add another 4 or 5, they're at 90, 91. It's not bad. They'll maybe add I imagine they're going to add 3 or 4 more transfers in the summer. I have to think they need to. Linebackers, probably another offensive lineman, hopefully a cornerback. So you're going to probably be looking at maybe topping out around 95, let's say, which means you have to have 10 players that say, hey, this new workout plan isn't for me. I can't look at that mustache every day. It's giving me a headache.
You think the number, that's what I was getting at. You think it's 10. You think there's going to be an attrition of 10. There's going to need to be an attrition of 10 players to make the numbers work. Ballpark.
For this coming season, I think that's a fair guesstimate, yes. And then when you move forward, it's where it gets even more tricky, but we don't want to get hung up on this. It gets tricky because, and I'll just put it in very simple terms, when you have 65 out of 85, I'm guesstimating, I think that's about what it is, that are freshmen or sophomores this coming season, you can't keep on bringing in 25 plus 7 without getting rid of a ton of young kids out of the program. But when you have to reshape a roster, this is what you have to do. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying this is probably what's going to happen. And fans freak out when I talk about the numbers and say it's negative. It's not negative. It's just a fact. These are numbers. This is what the NCAA is making people do. College coaches begged and pleaded with the NCAA when they gave extra year of eligibility for the COVID year. They begged and pleaded, move the 85 to 95, move it to 90, even 100. You can't keep it at 85 because there's going to be kids that are stuck in that portal that can't get out of the portal, that can't graduate from college because of what you're doing. And it's true. And some of them might be Miami Hurricanes that get stuck in that portal that just weren't good enough to hack it here. And Mario Cristobal does not have a choice if he wants to bring in top young talent, but to tell these kids, I'm so sorry, do your best in the portal. We're wishing the best for you. I know you didn't graduate from here, but this is a business. This is a business of winning championships. And it's going to happen not just at Miami, but other places too. And it's the NCAA's fault. It's not Mario's fault. It's not Miami's fault. It's the NCAA's fault.
The way you get out of it is do a better job of evaluating your signees every year and don't have the attrition. I mean, that's the only way you get out of that vicious cycle. And I think they will. I think they will improve the personnel department. I think the recruiting department will get better. And I think that they will do a better job of evaluation and selecting players. And I think once they do that, you'll need less transfers, because I'm not sure Mario Cristobal is really this massive believer in the transfer portal. I think he would rather develop players the traditional route. But right now, coming into the situation at Miami the way he is, it makes sense to bring in these transfers that they're bringing in.
Well, I'm going to explain why you're wrong in the original premise. It's not that Mario can't bring in top talent and develop them. He will. The problem is, not just at Miami, but around the country, there's 11 starters on offense and 11 starters on defense. Until you learn how to change that and start 22 kids on each program, even if you started 22 kids, that's 44 out of 85 that are playing. And I guarantee you, because I know these kids that are the backups, they have family members telling them, hey, you could start at that program and be a star and be in the NFL a year from now. And a lot of these kids don't listen, but a lot of them do listen. And they say, hey, I'm better than that guy. Every player thinks they're better than the other guy ahead of them. I mean, that's just how you have to think about it. Because if you don't think you're better than the guy ahead of you, why are you even there? Or at least you think you'll be better, if you keep working hard. So kids are going to leave. Talented kids who they coach up, who they hit on in recruiting, who they coached up, if they do it with everybody, kids are still going to leave just because they're stuck on third team, even though they're better than 90% of the other kids in the ACC, hypothetically. They're just stuck on a championship team, hopefully from a Miami perspective, and they're going to have a better chance to play elsewhere. And it's just it's the side effect of the transfer portal and the free transfer. It just is.
All right. Well, speaking of talent evaluation, we have a breakdown this morning where we rank the February targets both by talent and need. I think you'll enjoy that. Just a little different viewpoint of the impending decisions that are going to be made Wednesday morning for signing day.
And it's pretty amazing when you look at that. We have, I think, 10 kids listed. And when you look at number 10, that would have been probably number 3 or 4 on a he who can't be named list over the last 3 years. It's very impressive, the guys Mario's going after. I like all 10 of them. I could say that all 10 of them belong here, whereas in the past you'd say, I'm not sure that those 3 guys really belong here, but okay, we'll trust the coaches. Maybe you shouldn't have trusted those coaches.
All right, a ton of other recruiting coverage on the site today, beginning with a story on offensive tackle Matthew McCoy from St. John's Creekside, who is now down to Miami and Florida, a Canes-Gator battle, and I think it's one, Matt, that the Canes are going to win. Your thoughts?
Out of the list of 10 guys that you see on the website, Matthew McCoy, I personally think he'll be a Hurricane, and you can't guarantee any of these things. I don't know if are we going player by player, Gary? Could I just say who I think is going to be a Hurricane? No.
We're just talking about Matthew McCoy. Stay on point.
What do you want about Matthew? What do you want to know about Matthew McCoy?
I think he's going to pick Miami over Florida.
I agree.
Because now I'm switching gears to 5-star offensive lineman Josh Connerly, who's leaning towards Miami right now. But there's a little bit of a problem in this one, Matt, in that he says he's not going to sign till March. He's from the West Coast, and he wants to visit USC in Oregon. And I think it's a big deal that Miami has to try to hold on really for a whole month, waiting for him to sign in March, when if he were signing tomorrow, I think they would win.
Okay, well, I'm sort of a facts guy, so I'm not going to disagree with you saying he's leaning towards Miami. That's your opinion, right? You're not saying that's a fact, because he's clearly said to me, and I talked to his dad at length, and we have a really nice update with the dad, and that's clearly not the case coming out of their camp, just so you know. I know he had a great time at Miami, and it is easy to say, my opinion is he's leaning towards Miami. I personally think if he was forced to sign tomorrow, I think he'd be a Hurricane. But
okay, that's what I said.
Okay. You made it sound like a fact, like he'd actually.
Tomorrow.
You made it sound like a fact, like he'd said it versus your opinion. So I just want to make clear, he has not said anything like that. But yeah, it's going to be a really interesting recruitment, because I can't remember any recruit that's ever waited until March. I don't even know if you can even sign in March. I think by then you just go up, you just enroll. I don't think you can actually sign anymore. You sign one of those agreements. You can sign with multiple schools to go work out there, but I think you just show up at the school for summer session 1 at that point. You can't sign anymore. So they can make an announcement in March. And then they could change their mind again and go somewhere else, make an announcement in March, make an announcement in April, make an announcement in May, and then show up somewhere. That's what I hope they do. That'd be great.
There was a kid last year that waited until the summer. He was the #1 recruit in the country, a defensive lineman. I'm trying to remember his name. I can't. He ended up signing, I believe, with Ohio State. But for the most part, I can't remember seeing, kids push these things back like this.
Has never happened at Miami, other than you talk about just late signees where the kid just sort of fell through the cracks. You remember Ray Lewis, for instance? Ray Lewis was one of the first stories I ever wrote. I remember I was at my grandfather's house out on the beach on Ocean Beach, right off Long Island, and Miami SID was setting up a call for me with Ray Lewis. I was a young, just out of college kid. I was so excited. I got to talk to Ray Lewis, and it was a feature on Ray Lewis, and it was great because I was just sort of fresh. I didn't really know any of these things. And he told me this whole story. He's such a great talker. It was probably one of the best first interviews you can ever do. And it really was one of my first interviews I ever did with a college student athlete. And he just talked about how nobody thought he was any good out of high school. Nobody would offer him. And then at the last second, basically Miami came and took a chance on him. And he was just enrolled. He didn't get to sign anywhere because nobody wanted him.
I remember that day like it was yesterday. It was.
Yeah, I remember. I was sitting, looking out at the dunes out of my window at my grandfather's house, talking to Ray Lewis, and there was no cell phones back then. I guess I was just on some landline, one of those horrible phones. You're like this, and you're writing the stuff down. I don't even think I had a recorder in those days. I'm like literally writing stuff down to write the story. That's how I used to do it in those days. And I'm sure the story was just awful. Thank God there was really no internet presence back then where somebody could have archived my story to look at it now. I'm sure it was a terrible story. But it was a great interview. But so anyway, getting back to the point, I can't remember in any time since I've been doing this that a kid has actively decided, I'm just going to not announce anything. And this is in part due because they're allowing you to take official visits now in March for juniors and now for seniors, obviously. So in the spring, once the dead period ends, you can take more official visits. And that wasn't the case until I think 2 years ago. I can't remember when it started. I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So I think there's going to be more and more of this. I still don't really understand the rush to sign on a signing day in December, unless you're enrolling early. And I've had parents tell me, I don't understand. Why does everyone want us to sign early? And for the coaches at the colleges, it makes perfect sense. This was pushed by the college coaches.
You can get kids in early. It's like another half a year of development.
Well, it's not just that. It's that they know they have that number, and now they can move to February and fill up whatever they have left. It's super great for the coaches versus on all of a sudden on Sunday, oh my gosh, FSU told these 2 kids to tell us they were coming and they're not. And these 3 kids at Florida told us to come and they're not. And now there's nothing left to do. It's signing day's over. But if it happens in December, you already got your numbers. For college coaches, it's great. You know what you have. For parents and for kids, I don't think it's great unless you're enrolling early. If it was my son, honestly, I would tell him, don't sign in December. There's no point. See which coaches really want you. You don't know what coaching changes are happening after the season. The coach that you love at this school might not be there in January.
You also could lose your spot, Matt. I mean, not every kid's a 5-star.
I would tell my kid, great. If you lose your spot, then that coach didn't want you anyway. Give me a break.
No, man, no. Because, coaches are going to take the kids that want to come. And if you lose your spot, you might end up having to go to a school that you don't really want to go to. So if you're sure about where you want to go,
So Shamar Stewart, let's say Cyrus Moss comes to Miami, which he did.
I'm not talking about Shamar Stewart. I'm not talking about Cyrus Moss.
If you're some schmuck who they don't think is that great and you're just okay and we'll take you just because, then I don't want to go there anyway, Gary. No. If they're going to drop me because I want to wait till February to weigh my options, then I go somewhere else.
Let's take a 3-star kid. I'll use Inez Cooper as an example.
First of all, again, it's Inez.
Inez. I'm sorry, but here's my point.
He's going to be a hurricane. You better get used to saying his name.
I know, but listen, this is a little different, okay, in that he's doing this in the second signing period. But if a kid like that wants to go to Miami and he has a chance to sign in December and he knows he wants to go to Miami, lock in your spot, sign your scholarship, get into school early, start working in the strength program. You will accelerate your role on the football team.
Listen, I'm going to tell you a little secret, okay? Here's the little secret. If Auburn had a spot for him in December, he would be at Auburn. And if Auburn said, hey, come, he would have signed. But as it turns out, they didn't even really want him. And
I understand.
Yes, he could sign in December, but he can't enroll early anyway. What's the benefit to him? He's not coming to Miami to work out between December and May.
No, he would be if he was an early entry.
But he's not. So why sign in December? I said early entry.
But I
just
qualified it that it's different because of the circumstances this year. But typically, a kid like that, if he has the opportunity to sign in December and he knows where he's going, I don't agree with you. I think he should sign and lock in a spot. Now, before I move on.
And if the coaches leave, then what?
What's
the upside to him?
What's the opportunity? You have the opportunity to transfer if you don't like the new coach.
You say lock in a spot. Like
lock in a spot.
That's old to me. That's old school. I remember in the old days, it's like we have 2 spots for cornerbacks. You better take it or else. What I tried to say earlier in this whole conversation, Gary, is it's not that way anymore. They could take as many cornerbacks as they want. Ditch kids. Take transfers if it doesn't work out. It's not the numbers aren't the numbers anymore.
That is not a sustainable thing. You're not ditching. Oh my God. Listen, if you're doing your job in the recruiting office and you're evaluating talent, well, you're not ditching so many kids, okay? There's always going to be some that you miss on that maybe don't work out through, behavioral issues, culture issues, things like that. That's always going to happen. But if the recruiting office is doing its job properly, you're not going to have a lot of kids that you need to ditch. But that's a whole nother issue. I just
Gary, here's a perfect point for why you're wrong. There's 4 or 5 top wide receivers in the class of 2023 in the South Florida area. If they all want to come to Miami, Miami should only really take 2 or 3 this year. They'll take all 5. You don't say no to the kids you want. What I'm saying is, if they say, oh, your spot's going to be gone, they don't really want you. You're not that good to them because there's kids.
Why do you think
a lot of kids?
Why do you think
you have a spot no matter what?
From Miami Northwestern was so quick to commit?
Why was he so quick to commit?
Yeah, 2023.
He loves Miami. He wants to be a Hurricane.
Correct. And he knows that there's a lot of good receivers. And he knows if he doesn't commit and lock in his spot, that spot might not be there 3, 4, 5 months from now. Okay? So I'm not wrong. If you know that you want to go to a school,
you are wrong because they'll drop them. How many times have you seen kids commit and they get dropped
in your scholarship, and you better sign as soon as you can.
You are out of your.
If you don't know you want to go there, then you could keep postponing it and stringing it along and take your chances. Okay.
Have you ever heard of a kid being dropped after he commits, Gary? I believe it happens. So you could take a spot all you want. It doesn't mean you sell the spot a month later.
But if you haven't already committed and you're not there to be dropped, then you're really out of the game. So just
it's simple. Either you're good enough or you're not. You have a bad season, they're not going to take you. You have a great season, they'll still take you. It's a business. It's not like, we're doing you a favor. You locked in your spot. We won't look at anyone else who's better than you. That's ridiculous.
These guys on the YouTube comments are going to start saying that Gary was flabbergasted with Matt again. Okay, like they've been saying this for days now, and so I'm trying to keep my composure here. But I'm not wrong. If a kid wants to go to a school and he knows he wants to go to school, he should lock it in and sign. Period.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Don't string it along.
That's not what I've been. You're saying it's something totally different now.
Which takes me back to Josh Connerly, who I think if he was signing tomorrow would sign with Miami, and I think it's going to be hard to hold on to him for a month. I really do, because USC and Oregon are right there on the West Coast with him, and they're going to come hard. We'll see what happens. All right. I mentioned Anis Cooper earlier. We have a story on him today. He's weighing Miami or Oregon, except for one thing. He hasn't even visited Oregon, so that tells you where he's going. And I threw him. In that little video there, I know it's a quick snippet, but at least he shows you that he's got some decent athletic ability. I think this is a guy, I know he could play on either side of the ball. I think he's going to end up on the offensive line. And you watch, this is a kid that's going to play a lot of years in the National Football League. That's my opinion based on the film that I've watched and just what I'm seeing in terms of his feet and his athletic ability. I'm real bullish on this late pickup from Miami, even though he's a 3-star. Okay, we also have a story on running back Trevante Citizen, who's down to Miami, LSU, Auburn, and Florida. I think, Matt, we finally agree on something when it involves Citizen. I think we agree that this one's going to be tough for Miami. It's just it's asking too much too late in the game.
Yeah, you know what's funny? It's some people are saying, out in the internet world are saying he's coming to Miami, which we get every year with some of these kids. But Yeah, I don't think he winds up at Miami. Again, it's recruiting, and anything can change on a dime. It happened, I think, most recently with Avante Williams. Nobody thought Avante Williams was coming to Miami, remember? And boom, Avante Williams. I always like to go back to the LaShawn McCoy thing. LaShawn McCoy, that was the best ever. I don't think he even visited Miami, and he commits to. He never came here, obviously, but he committed to Miami on signing day, and people were like, "Wait, what? LaShawn McCoy is a Hurricane? I don't know. Is this a misprint on the ESPN scroll?" So you never know what's going to happen. Kids, even who don't visit, might wind up at Miami, right? So that's what makes signing day fun. You never know, and certainly we'll be tuning into when he announces because you don't know. He did visit, and he did really like it from what we were told. So who knows?
All right, we have more on Good Morning CaneSport, but first, let's take a break for this new message from Life Wallet and Gilbert Frierson.
911, what's your emergency?
When you're injured or suffering a medical emergency,
my name, Gilbert Frierson. My image, right before you. Like me now. My life depends on it.
Life Wallet. Saving time, saving lives.
You know, I had the chance to see Gilbert Frierson on multiple occasions now, Matt, at Life in his Life Wallet relationship and responsibilities. If you could see the joy, I mean, just the unbridled joy on Gilbert's face every time he walks into a Life Wallet meeting or he walks into their headquarters where I saw him the other day. I mean, I'm telling you, what John Ruiz is doing with these kids, and I know he's got people that are trying to hate on him out in the community for whatever reason and stuff, and we've been through that already, but like, listen, I'm getting to witness this with my own eyes, and I mean, I am just blown away. And if you could see just the self-esteem, the self-confidence, and the joy on Gilbert's face and some of these other kids, I mean, it's transformational what is going on, and they're being life coached. They're learning how to speak with intonation, how to market a product and sell it like they really feel it and mean it. And you know, everyone's going to be seeing all this in the weeks ahead. They're going to be creating a whole lineup of commercials and materials and stuff. And we've entered into a marketing partnership with them where we're going to showcase the work of the kids because I think it's important. And like I said, I'm extremely impressed by the work that these kids are doing. And I think people are going to enjoy seeing it. And so, yeah, we're going to be doing that in the days ahead. But Gilbert in particular, man, that he got to be the first one to do that commercial. And then at the first meeting, John Ruiz pulled them up in front of the whole team that was there, or at least the players that were there. And then he live performed the commercial, and he did it perfectly. It was just a really cool thing to watch. But anyway, back to the news of the day, Matt. They did release the schedule last night, the big grand reveal on the ACC network. And I like Miami's schedule. I think it's extremely well spaced. I think that the difficult games are, interspersed in a good fashion. You've got the September trip to Texas A&M, which obviously is a circle game. I mean, that game on the road at an SEC power is the signature game of the season. That's obviously not a conference game, but that's going to be an epic Saturday. Just a great atmosphere in College Station, and anybody that has the ability to travel to that game, I urge you to go. You will not be sorry. It's a nice little college town, beautiful stadium, great atmosphere. You can, if you bring your significant other with you, you get to kiss them. I believe it's at the start of the fourth quarter or something. Just a very cool college football experience there in College Station. But Matt, the thing that jumped out to me, and again, I think the month of October with the ACC schedule, starting with North Carolina at home, at Virginia Tech, Duke at home, at Virginia, the two road games split up with a home game, I think is just perfect for Miami. And then you get into the month of December and you start with the home game against Florida State. Now, where the trapdoors are in the schedule to my eye is you got a road game at Georgia Tech followed by a road game at Clemson in consecutive weeks. Then you come home to play an always tough Pittsburgh team. So you got to hope, Matt, by the end of the season that you're rolling, that your football team has found its rhythm with a new head coach, new coordinators. But Miami, the way the schedule sets up, I think is positioned for a very good season.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. And one thing you always want to do is you want to face rebuilding teams early. And you want, if you're a rebuilding team, or when I say rebuilding, I also mean teams that either are losing major pieces or have a new coaching staff in place like Miami does, you want to be able to take it slow at the beginning. So Miami will have those first two easy games to figure out any kinks, any lineup changes they want to make, whatever it may be, to get ready for Texas A&M. And honestly, I don't see how Miami shouldn't, on paper, start either 7-1 or by some miracle if they beat Texas A&M 8-0, because they're going to win 3 of the first 4 at least, obviously. And then North Carolina, it's good to get them early as that first ACC game because their defense is really pretty bad. They lost Sam Howell. They're going to have a lot of issues they're going to be dealing with and still figuring out at that point. And to be fair, Miami may too, even though Miami has more personnel coming back, but coaching-wise. Then Virginia Tech's just really a rebuilding program, period. They've just been struggling. They've had losing seasons, I think 3 of the last 4 years. I just don't think they're going to be very good. Duke's awful. And Virginia's not real good. So, the issue with Virginia is going to be, obviously, you have to deal with Brennan Armstrong, but they have a pretty bad defense, and they lost 2 of their best defensive players. So now, to your point, you only missed the December games. I always think FSU is tough. I don't care that they've been down, whatever. They still have good players, and those players act like this game is their Super Bowl, which they should. So you don't always know what's going to happen in that FSU game. So I think FSU will be a little tougher than maybe people think. Georgia Tech, I'm not worried about, even though it's on the road and they barely beat them last year. It's just not a good team. And then obviously at Clemson versus Pittsburgh, by then Miami will be clicking on all cylinders, you hope. I think Clemson's going to be much better this year on offense than they were last year. They can't be worse, that's for sure. And hey, they may even have a different quarterback. We'll see. So that's going to be a tough game. And then the Pittsburgh game may, just because the Coastal is so weak, it may wind up determining the Coastal champion. So those last 2 games really are the season to me. I think that's what it's going to come down to. I'm always right. So it's going to be really interesting last 2 games.
All right, and also on the website today, we take a look at the basketball team. We got to give them their love. They're having a great season, and they have a big home game tomorrow night against Notre Dame. That is, I think it's season shaping. I mean, right now you're in first place in the ACC. You're probably not going to run the table, but this is a home game against the team that you're contending with to win the conference. Miami needs to put a good showing together and beat the Irish on Wednesday night. And just solidify their place at the top of the ACC. So we take a look at how the team is proving the doubters wrong and look ahead to the Notre Dame challenge that's up next. So that's going to do it today for Good Morning CaneSport. We thank you for joining us. Tomorrow is National Signing Day, Part 2. Do we still call it National Signing Day? I mean, this is like so weird. The last couple of years, I think we almost ignored the second signing period. Now it's like a big deal with all these guys. But I'll call it National Signing Day until we figure out it's not called National Signing Day anymore. So yeah, that's tomorrow, and we'll take another look and see what new developments have come up with these recruits tomorrow morning as we get ready to cover the signings coming in. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you for joining us once again on Good Morning CaneSport. Have a great day, everybody.